So the only thing you gotta do is just hold it up. It's already broadcast.
Yeah, pretty simple. Easily you can get it from in the Apple Store or the Google Play. So yeah, go get Pop. Pretty cool. Let's talk about Sketch and Envision. One of the first design tools I ever started using was, ironically, Quark Express. That was like 1994. Thank God that program is dead now, because I really hated it. Like, it was just not the best tool out there for me, right? But that was the tool of the time in terms of doing print design. When I found out about Adobe Illustrator, that was like, oh, it blew my mind. Like, this is cool. Then I learned Photoshop. And then, you know, you got into like doing all these different designs, kind of back in the days, going back and forth between Illustrator and Photoshop. But you do have these new tools now, like Sketch. What I like about Sketch is that it's easy enough for a person who's not into illustrating design to actually learn, but it's powerful enough to actually create beautiful flows around digital experiences, right? Whether you're doing it for mobile, you're doing it for a watch, you're doing it for whatever type of digital screen you can think of. Sketch is a very simple but yet powerful tool. And what makes it even more powerful is how well it integrates with InVision. InVision, I know, has a huge presence here today. I'm sure it's been talked about a lot, but it's more so about the integration of the design tool with the prototyping tool to give you like this very cool, unique experience itself. Tenets of it is that it's easy to integrate. It has real-time feedback, supposedly now with this new sync version, and it's easy to collaborate again with your team and your clients. And let's run a video of that.
Hey, this is Andy with Envision. I'm really excited to announce that the world's most powerful design prototyping and collaboration platform now integrates with Sketch. Let's take a look at how it works. I've got a Sketch file open here with 4 artboards. I'll save this file directly to my source files folder in Envision Sync, and when I return to Envision, my artboards will have automatically been converted to screens. If I have an artboard or a page that I don't want exported, I'll just add a minus before the title. All I have to do to edit or add screens is make my changes and hit save. The screens are automatically updated in a matter of seconds. We also make it really easy to export individual assets too. Just mark anything for export or create a slice and we'll extract them as assets. If I jump over to the Assets tab in Envision, I can see the items I had marked for export are ready for my developers to jump in and grab. Sketch syncing is quite possibly the fastest way yet to work in Envision. Why not give it a try today and let us know what you think.
All right, so that's Sketch Sync. I know some of you all like pretty much maybe don't want to use Sketch. Maybe it's too remedial for you. Maybe you just want to stick with something that's a lot familiar, right? And Photoshop with Live Share kind of does the same thing as Sketch Sync, but it's more so great for if you have flows or imagery or screens in your Photoshop PSD files. It's good for like doing real-time feedback from within the program itself, right? So i.e., you got a client, right? Now you got to probably export out some type of prototype that could be web-based, and now you got to send them a meeting link. Now you got to get those guys to make sure that they can log on to it, and hopefully you guys can kind of go back and forth and review the work. Well, why not be able to review the work in this agile manner, even if they're not there while you're in the program? Like, I think that's probably a better option, right? So this little simple free plugin that allows you to have like instant feedback. It allows you to do mobile mirroring, especially if you want to take like your flows and put them on the device. It does this notion of easy collaboration and real-time meetings in the browser. Run another video.
Hey there, this is Andy from Envision.
I was
in
the
this
same
video,
voice, right?
I'm going to show you our new Photoshop plugin, Live Share PS. We think it's going to take your design collaboration to a whole new level. There are a number of things that make this plugin so helpful. First, with a single click, you can start a real-time design meeting right from Photoshop. our plugin will magically broadcast your live Photoshop canvas to as many people as you want. Just invite your fellow designers, clients, or whoever to point, sketch, chat, and more for a truly collaborative experience, all beamed live right from your Photoshop canvas. But here's where it gets even cooler. It's completely real time, which means any changes I make to my design are instantly reflected in my meeting. Let's say I want to show everyone what this design looks like with a little more contrast in this sidebar. I just change it in Photoshop and voila, everyone in the meeting can see my update. Now, sometimes you just want to share a quick snapshot of a work in progress. Our plugin lets you do that too. Just click and your comp will be instantly available as a shareable URL. Send it to anyone, anywhere, and let them view or leave comments anytime. And last but not least, we've baked in mobile mirroring options that are sure to streamline your mobile design process. If you click on the mobile mirroring bar at the bottom of the plugin, you can send yourself a text message with your own personal mobile mirroring link. Add this to your home screen for instant live mobile previews of whatever you're working on in Photoshop. Best of all, everything you've seen here is completely free. To download this free plugin, go to envisionapp.com/Photoshop.
All right. Somebody mentioned earlier about Pixate. One of my favorite programs. It's one of those programs that allow you to take an idea and kind of see how does it, animate on a device. It's one thing to kind of do flows and, UI, but you already know that when it comes down to design, it's also how it works. Sometimes trying to code things in a quick manner doesn't always necessarily work, right? But if you can download this app and kind of play around with the learning curve, it can give you some kind of wonderful, magical things, especially when you're now trying to convey how an app actually will function, because we all know the animation within an app, it does allow you to kind of say that, well, this is how engaging the app could be, right? It does add to the overall interaction and the experience itself. If you think about Pixate, it's actually been used a couple of times by apps you probably have already used. With the exception of this one at the top left, obviously Google, well, they now own it, they use Pixate to play around with Google Now. The guys at Spotify have used it, as well as some of the guys over at Pinterest have actually used it to play around with the whole quasi 3D touch within the app itself. So we'll just kind of play this out. Obviously, this is an example of if I'm a tracking app. I can kind of look at my goal or the calorie count. I get a deeper understanding of activity over a period of time. I can click on some tabs, and then I can kind of play around with some of the settings, right? That's the top left app. If you think about Google, well, it works pretty much how Google Now works. It works off the notion of material design and these different modal and cards that, Google likes to kind of present within the app. Pretty cool, very seamless, but it feels like a working app as opposed to some apps like Pop. It just kind of pop things on the screen. This actually animates your graphics and your elements pretty well. This one, obviously, with Pinterest, pretty cool. You see how certain photos kind of play around with a scrollable screen, and you get an idea that if I press and hold on a photo, maybe I get some more menu items that I can kind of click on and get a deeper understanding of how the app could work. And obviously with Spotify, something such as an app that really deals with music. You already know music's like that hard thing now to really play around with. Playlists versus streaming versus shareable playlists versus discovering music versus playing it. That could be a lot to try to communicate to a client, right? So why not actually show these guys, right? Like how a music app could easily work. So that's Pixate. Ironically, one of the easiest prototyping tools that comes on just about every Mac user in this room is Keynote. When we was working on the Watch app project in the late part of last year, ironically, I learned that a lot of Apple, ironically, use Keynote to design a lot of UI for almost all of their screens and applications on the computer itself. So Keynote, ironically, is a very powerful tool that you can go get different types of plugins or themes to use and just show how things work for different screens. One place you can get a lot of those things from is from Keynotopia. But even if you don't like those actual things, you can actually just use the general animations that kind of just comes with the program, right? And The cool thing about it is it's pretty easy. So most of you guys, you can kind of do the same thing in PowerPoint, but it's something about Keynote and using this to prototype. It's very simple. Even guys at IBM who are like non-designers in the sense they didn't go to school for design or creativity or whatever, pick this up pretty quickly. And you know, we found out that this particular program, especially with working with Apple, they really like it. And it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty quick. And developers like it even more so because a lot of times you can maybe export out these things as MOVs or PDFs and just kind of pass them off to people that review the work. So that's Keynote, which most of you probably already have. Oh, so we'll run this video, right? This is a video of the top portion was created by Google, and the bottom was created by some guy who wanted to show that you could do the same type of interaction as Google using Keynote. Pretty much it's the same elements, exact same animation, same transitions, and it's using material design to kind of convey that story, right? So yes, you know, you got Keynote, you can start prototyping today. There you go. Number 7, your browser and wireframe CC. How many of you guys ever heard of this? Show of hands. One person. If I had a prize, I'd give it to you, my friend. But ironically, if you just want something really simple, maybe you don't have Keynote, maybe you don't have PowerPoint, maybe you just got like a little simple MacBook Air and just with no design programs whatsoever. Maybe you stuck at an airport with like a random computer user and you really gotta knock out some, you know, some wireframes really quickly, right? Like that's like, you know, worst case scenario, but those things could happen. You all know that, right? But wireframe.cc allows you to just simply draw squares, gray boxes, annotate them a little bit. It doesn't do a lot of interaction in terms of like clicking from one screen to the next or doing like a real good flow, but you can essentially do very simple wireframing with this program. Some of the tenets is it does click, drag, and draw, right? It's very minimal. The interface is super, super simple. Almost like a cat could probably draw some wireframes if you got a smart cat like that. You can annotate with ease. It has a very limited palette, which yet again, it really pushes you to have to think about keeping it very simple. Has very smart suggestions. It works on just about any kind of device in terms of doing wires like mobile versus desktop versus a kiosk or whatever. But it's pretty simple. So yeah, just go and check it out, wireframe.cc, and that's the URL. So just type it in your browser. Your team in Axure. Now, Axure, it is one of those programs. It is highly, like, I don't know, it's a very advanced prototyping program. I will say that I like it for a couple different reasons. It allows you to take an idea and really just thoroughly blow it out just to see how this thing is going to interact or how you're going to show a client how your product comes to life. Down part about it is a learning curve there. It's one of those things that you got to kind of sit and just kind of dive deep into really understanding this program, as well as it could be a little pricey depending on what organization product, if they're willing to invest or get multiple licenses. I think is well worth it. We've used this a couple of different times on various projects at IX, and I must say the client thoroughly enjoyed it. The one thing they like about it is that, you know, when you send out a link, you can secure it. Like, you know, I'm sure you guys work at organizations where you share work with other clients. The one thing they're always going to be concerned about is, will somebody be able to see this online, right? So just like InVision, you can definitely add like some security measures to this. So send them like a link, send them a login, and they can kind of play around with this. And maybe they can sell this up through the organization while you're not there yourself to actually present it. But I would say Axure, get it if you can. Is, like I said, it's pretty robust. It could be pricey, but it's well worth the try though. Once you get the hang of it, it's a really, really good prototyping tool. Last and not least, I would say that the best tool that any of us in this room could have, really, is the community that you're part of, right? Like, I think a lot of times we like to talk about, like, Illustrator versus Sketch, Axure versus InVision or paper versus tablet and a stylus. But the reality is your community that you're part of is probably the best tool ever. If you think about what that community could be, it can be young people, it can be like a co-working space, it can be your co-workers themselves, like at your job, or just maybe you that random guy who's just a guy with a bunch of different people who don't look like you, right? But ultimately, the community that you're a part of is like the ultimate tool, because these are guys that can actually inform you about a lot of different ways of how to prototype or how to come up with good ideas or what's the best approach in terms of, presenting work to a client, or how do you get teams motivated to even want to do work in the first place, or where do you start with an idea? I think a lot of times in this digital era, it's cool that we can connect online, but I think when you have these face-to-face type interactions, they're a little bit better, right? Because you can actually kind of go back and forth. It feels a little bit more authentic, and you can kind of get things done a little bit more quicker, right? So the communities that you're a part of, to me, is like the ultimate tool, because that, to me, would never get old. Technology changes a lot. InVision is dope now. Maybe it's something around the corner waiting to replace it. Adobe came up with some new prototyping tool that's going to compete with Sketch, right? But those things change a lot. But this aspect of community and like other designers, I don't think that'll never get old. It may change how you interact with these guys, but actually being a part of a community, it definitely helps. Some of the communities to consider, right? You got IXDA, you got Behance, you got PSFK. Some of you guys have probably been to I/O with Google, WWDC with Apple. If you're like to diversity, you got Black Girls Code, you got Code Academy, you definitely got General Assembly, all the way down to Skillshare and even Grindspace, which has offices here in New York as well as Chicago. So consider that, certain kinds of communities may not be for everybody, but find a community that best suits you, and let those other tools that I may not be talking about today, find those other tools in the communities that you're in. In conclusion, if you're thinking about storytelling from the perspective of like traditional media, that's like paid media through like print ads, radio spots, TV spots, out of home, whatever, right? Like those are like those storytelling components that are like more like one way. I think we have to kind of move from like this notion of 360 storytelling to more like 365 days of experiencing the brand itself, almost being a part of the story, as opposed to I'm going to read about the story or somebody's going to share the story with me. Why not create an experience that allows people to be a part of that story? And I'll leave you with this guy here. He's one of my favorites, Elon Musk. He's a guy who's kind of potentially has the capabilities of putting people on Mars within our lifetime. And I don't know if that's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, who knows? But the one thing that I admire this guy about is that he would continue to try, fail, learn, try, and at some point he's gonna win, because he's relentless in terms of finding the solution and finding the right experience for what he's trying to do. So that said, go out and create your own beautiful experiences. You can reach me at afranks3 on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere online, and I would be more than glad to open up to any kind of questions. Thank you. No questions, huh? She has a question.
Thank you so much. That was really cool. That was a lot of tools. Do you use them all? Do you have a favorite?
I like pop art. I like Sketch. Like I said, Axure, or depending on where you're from, Axure, depending on how you pronounce it. But I haven't gotten into that yet. But I do love Sketch. I do love InVision and pop art. They're just simple and easy to use. Like Illustrator, love that too. But depending on who you are, that's a steep learning curve, right? Same thing with Photoshop. Like the professional design applications are really cool if you're a professional. But an organization like IBM, specifically IBM iX, we have a lot of people who didn't go to school and learn Photoshop or the Creative Suite. But those other tools kind of feel like consumer-facing tools, but they're powerful enough to compete with conveying an idea. So InVision and Sketch, for me, lately have been like the go-to tools to just get things done. So that's my personal favorite.
Um,
Thank you very much for the talk. What kind of challenges have you come across with trying to inculcate these codes, kind of design thought processes and tools at IBM?
Well, I would say when we was working on the watch project, the one thing that we had to rethink totally was like, how do you convey information around finances on a watch, because it's a limited screen space. Like obviously, you have character counts to consider. You have you obviously want to convey enough information for people to kind of get what you're conveying to these guys. But you also got to consider too, like latency in terms of data coming to the actual device, and even the legal. When you're working with institutions like a bank, there are legal ramifications that you have to consider when trying to do certain things like your money on your wrist that you have to try to get over. Those are huge barriers. But those things were like the main things we had to consider. Like, well, what's the most important thing that a person would want to see on their watch around banking? And simply put, just show me how much money I have, right? It's just really just that simple. Yeah, true enough, legally you probably have to show all the different transactions and where it came from, stuff like that. But that's more of like an in-app experience. That's more of a phone experience or an experience that you would get on a desktop or a tablet. But for a watch, it has to be very simple, very clean, and very easy to consume. Because think about it, right? With a watch, this is what you're doing. You're glancing. You're not doing a whole lot of interaction. You want to glance, maybe swipe up, look, and go away, right? So you have to really think about what would a person do when they're wearing a wearable. So that was like the most challenging thing I've had to deal with in quite some time, to almost take everything I know about design and pare it down to literally a screen this big. Any other questions?
If you were presenting a portfolio to show someone, if you're switching over careers or whatever, would you present all the animations showing your work, or would you just show the process, like sketching down to something in
I would say depending on who you're presenting to. I think the gentleman prior to me mentioned something very important. Depending on who you're talking to, or if you're talking to just a small group of people, whatever, you gotta tell a story. Like, it doesn't matter, right? If it's gonna be a very robust story or a very simple, nimble story, you have to tell a very compelling, simple story. So if animations is kind of required to kind of help tell a story, they use animations. If the animations kind of get in the way of the narrative, then I would say don't put them in there, right? And that's something that you really want to put in your book. But depending on who you're presenting your book or your portfolio or your work to, really think about the audience is gonna view the work and try to tell a story that contextually makes sense for those guys. But what you don't want to do is bore them to death.
So thanks, Adrian, for the conversation. It was really, really great and informative. I'm curious to know, what if you have any thoughts on helping people who don't see themselves as creative, in a traditional sense, right? But think about, design and creativity as someone else. I think. And don't see where they can be creative around this. I think one of the things I really liked about what you were presenting in terms of the tools was like level of fidelity, right? It had different levels that scaled from sketching, which I think anybody could do at the level of pop, right? You could just do a paper prototype. Is there any thoughts around how to, engage, if you're more of a design-oriented person or creative or tasked with something around that realm, how to get more people sort of engaged in that process, how to open that process up.
It is funny you mention that, Fritz, because at IBM, the one thing we try to at least get everybody to think about, even if you're not a designer, is to at least try to think like a designer, right? True enough, some people just don't have the talent to push a pixel and make it look pretty, right? But if you get this person, individuals who at least want to kind of think about ideas first, well, at least the user first, and what ideas can actually help that user, I think that would help those individuals to kind of go down the path of like, say, well, I got an idea, it could solve this problem for this user. True enough, I may not know how to do the best layout in terms of like topography, color uses or whatever, but I can maybe maybe mimic somebody for a while, maybe copy styles until I come up with my own. But it's more so getting people to be in the mindset to want to solve a problem first. Because that's what design does. It solves problems, right? It's cool that it look cool, but if it doesn't solve a problem, then it's kind of useless. And I think most people, if they really dig deep, most people do in general want to solve a problem. Like, I think most of the people in this room naturally do that just because we either train that way or we just have a natural capability of solving problems. But most human beings in general always want to solve a problem. And if you can kind of get those guys relate design to like their personal day-to-day of solving problems, then I think those guys can kind of say, well, solving a problem is very easy. Like just going from home to work, I have to now think like, how can I get out of traffic to get to work on time? That's solving a problem on the fly. So it's getting people to just think about problems first and, well, people first and problems second. How do you solve those?
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts, questions? Shy people, speak up now. Okay. All right, Adrian, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.